Hello, guys. Nat Blue here, and I'm sure you have noticed that there are a few things different today. First off, I'm recording in a different spot of my house. My main PC is having issues, so I'm recording with a secondary PC that I keep downstairs for other types of videos that I make. I was going to blur the background, but the plugin that I got for OBS to blur things doesn't work the best, so it kind of looked awful. So you know what? You guys will get to bask in the glory of my messy living room for this video. Thankfully, it's not as bad as it could be. I've just gotten some Amazon packages and stuff recently. If you look behind me, there is a little table that has the brand new Player's Handbook on it. So that's exciting. I haven't gotten to crack into it yet, but hopefully we get to that soon. I'm using a different microphone. This is a USB microphone that I bought for podcasting. I haven't been able to use it yet, so hopefully the audio is not too bad. This is the ZDM 100. It's supposed to be a very good microphone, so I'm hoping it sounds very good. I'm also using a different webcam. I'm using a Brio webcam that I've just recently bought, also for a podcast thing, so hopefully that looks good. And other than that, I don't want to hold you guys for very long. Today, I'm going to be cracking into the video for the new Dungeon Master's Toolbox, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So we're going to just hop right into that. And I hope you guys like it. If you do end up liking the video, please leave a like on the video. I know I normally don't do it very early in the video, but I mean, a like's always appreciated. You can also comment your opinions on this video, your opinions on the new player handbook stuff, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see videos as they're released. And if you want to see updates, I'm working on some D&D stuff right now that I'm really excited about. Hit the notification bell if you want to see videos as they are released. For my Halloween outfit today, I'm supposed to be Superboy. I got the t-shirt, a leather jacket that is way too hot right now, and I don't know how I'm going to make it through a half-hour video almost. So we'll see how that goes.
I have a massive Dungeon Master's toolbox that is in here now.
Boy, howdy.
And it's full of like every little thing that you would want to pull out of it to make an adventure. I love the damage tables. I love knowing what green ooze does. I like these environmental effects. I like the siege weapons. It really does feel like I have a box of toys in D&D to throw at players.
Yeah, so the chapter that's called the DM's Toolbox is the third chapter in the book. It comes after the first two chapters, which are basically primers for the DM. This chapter, the Toolbox, is more of a miscellany. It's here's a bunch of other things that are likely to come up either when you're prepping for your game or when you're running for your game, or they might not come up at all.
Yeah.
Because they're so varied, we decided a simple alphabetical presentation was the best. And it's very much like a grab bag. You walk into the shed, you look for the tool.
Look at that bag of holding right there. Jeez. The artwork for this has been so good. I love seeing the bag of holding. That's the Frostblade, maybe? So that's really exciting. I hope that's Frostblade. It might be something like the Holy Adventure or something like that.
You need for the job.
That's the Black
that
Dragon
too.
too.
This chapter sort of emulates that experience of when firearms become important, and you need to know what a keg of gunpowder does.
Yeah.
You go to the firearms and explosives section. If you don't have firearms or explosives in your game, you might never use this section.
I think of it as
I love having an explosive section. So I have a character in my current campaign, an NPC, that loves explosives, and it would be nice to have that reference material, which I'm sure it's in the regular DMG, the 2014 DMG. I have never read the DMG. Just to be transparent here, I've never read the DMG.
as equivalent to the rules glossary in the player's handbook, although the scale is very different. The rules glossary, you might have 12 entries on a single page. Here, each entry is 1 or 2 pages long, but it covers everything from alignment to creating new monsters to fear and mental stress to firearms, as Chris mentioned, and traps and everything in between.
Like you said, we have chases, running chases, ending chases, mapping a chase. Like this is a little very in-depth on chases. And you also...
I'm super excited about that. So I am not good at running chase scenes in games. I don't know about other DMs. It's a tough one for me because most of the time you're just trying to figure out which character is the fastest. Like, oh, the villain starts 40 feet from you. The Goliath can run 40 feet each turn. The gnome can only run 25, not counting the dash action. But I mean, that means there's going to be a little bit of a gap between those two characters. So does the barbarian carry the gnome? Does the barbarian slow down to match the speed? Does it just leave the party in the dust? There's a lot of, the Goliath, I guess I should say, not necessarily barbarian. But I mean, there's a lot of factors there. That will be better in this edition because I know the smaller characters are becoming creatures that can move with 30 feet. So you won't have that 25-foot difference anymore. So I could have explained that better. I'm so sorry, guys. I've walked an entire shift today. I'm trying my best.
Also have settings for those chases, like a wilderness chase versus an urban chase. And
Oh, I
then
love
you've got
that
like guidance
too.
for like creating creatures and magic items and all this other stuff. Like this feels very meaty. This is a lot to work with.
High protein content.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
Like, it kind of feels like you thought of everything that people would want.
And it's a combination of stuff that had existed in the 2014 DMG.
Yeah.
And was sort of
Scattered throughout the 2014
Yes.
DMG.
Yeah.
now consolidated in one place and tightened up. And
To be fair, to go back on a comment I made earlier, I haven't read the 2014 DMG because I've heard that it's super cluttered and hard to follow along with. Not because I don't want to read the 2014 DMG. I would love to. But I've just heard such awful things about it that I really don't want to take the time to try to figure it out.
then adding other topics that have sort of surfaced, and we felt like we could do a more in-depth discussion around.
What was one of the ones that you felt like you could do a more in-depth discussion on?
Death.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No. That section is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dealing with character death.
Exactly. How do you handle death in the campaign? Talking about death scenes, like as a character dies, what can you do to give them a moment
Right.
to sort of close off their story in that moment? But then dealing with the aftermath. Does the character come back? Does the player want the character to come back?
How do you deal with what if everyone dies?
Yes. Yes. It's a vital topic in this game where you're fighting monsters and rolling dice and rolling lots of ones.
Yeah.
And
If the entire party ends up in the underworld,
yes. Another topic I'm glad that we have in this section is a discussion of alignment and how you as a DM use alignment in the game and what alignment represents in the game. I think one of the important things that we call out here is that action determines alignment. Alignment doesn't determine action. It's not, I'm lawful good, ergo I should behave this way. It's, I behave this way, ergo I am lawful good. And if a creature's behavior changes, which could happen for any number of story reasons, alignment can change. Alignment is changeable. And driving that home, I think, is very important. Because let's say the characters meet a goblin on the highway, and that goblin is initially hostile to them. The goblin might have an alignment of neutral evil. But if the characters capture him or convince him to change his ways, that goblin's alignment can change. But it's a question of the goblin's behavior. If the goblin starts to behave in a less neutral evil way, then the DM says, this goblin's alignment's not neutral evil anymore.
Which, by the way,
So, one thing with this, I am not a huge fan of tracking alignment for player characters. I can sometimes understand for NPCs and monsters. I'm not a fan of tracking it for characters because alignment should be very flexible. Like, yeah, you're a lawful good character, but maybe you do one bad thing that shouldn't change your alignment. I can somewhat understand for like certain clerics and stuff. So let's say your god has a specific alignment, the deity that you're following, and wants you to act to that alignment. But I just feel like a lot of the times it's too tough to track without small things making big changes with alignment. I can understand it for monsters. I just feel like a lot of the time you're not giving the monster time to change alignment. Except for the situation, like they said, maybe your party finds a goblin that they like. I don't know.
way is Bigby's story.
Yes. Yes,
How so?
exactly.
He started off as an evil NPC, and Mordenkainen took him under his wing and reformed him, and he became good.
But they let him get crushed by a giant.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
resurrected by a druid.
Reincarnated, yeah.
Reincarnated
Yeah.
by a druid instead of
Yeah.
resurrection. That seems on purpose.
might have been some unresolved feelings coming to play there.
I don't like Mordenkainen.
I get it. I get it. Do you need to like Mordenkainen? No.
He can be a bit of a jerk sometimes.
Yeah.
A lot of the
grew my hair
times,
back.
yeah.
We've got curses and magical contagions. I always love this stuff. Cackle fever, sewer plague. We've got sight rot. Some lovely, lovely little curses to put onto your players.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new text in there about how you as a DM can sort of create a custom curse that sort of fits well into the story you're trying to tell. Because a curse can take many different forms in our game. From the curse of demonic possession to something that is more akin to lycanthropy.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that in the context of the game? What tools do you have as a dungeon master to sort of realize that mechanically?
I do love that. That is so cool. I need some more courses. That picture was so sick too, of the guy with like his face coming down. I really want to course a player. That sounds so much fun. I love that he mentioned lycanthropy. So Grim Hollow has a transformation aspect to the game where you can become a lycanthrope, you can become a vampire, stuff along those lines. I'm super excited to see if D&D also goes that route a little bit with the courses. That would be super fun. I love the idea of like a cleric casting remove course and it curing lycanthropy. I've allowed a player in one of my campaigns to do that in the past. And that's just such a cool concept to me.
The sort of the heart of the discussion of that particular section.
And this is quite a meaty section on death.
Oh, yes, yeah. A nice two-page
this
spread.
really covers it.
With a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah, that is gorgeous.
Of characters making the journey to the great beyond.
And the hands coming out of the water.
Well, that's for you, Todd. Yeah, don't jump out of the boat.
In my head at home, I don't think I'm that creepy. Our house is like our house is black.
Yeah, don't jump into the river Styx.
Yeah,
bad things can happen there, and that's covered in this section as well.
It is?
Under hazards.
Oh,
Under
of course
hazards.
It is. Doors, famously a problem in D&D.
Okay, doors are a problem in D&D. That's not why I was pausing. I've been bested by many door, but I love the rapport between the guys in this video. First off, Todd, amazing interviewer, but these other two guys are bouncing off of him really well. I'm really happy with how this came out. They do a great job with these videos, and I think Todd is doing an amazing job. Weird freeze frame of the transition between his face in the door section.
I've seen parties die because of doors. I've spent 2 hours in front of a door.
Yes, and one of the reasons why we have a section on that is because one of the things that most often happens in any D&D adventure is the characters come to a locked door.
Yeah.
Or they have to find a secret door.
Or the characters come to a door that's not locked. They try to lockpick it. Maybe there's like a riddle or something involved. They try to lockpick it. They realize they don't need to lockpick it. After 30 minutes of messing with the door. That happens a lot too.
In order to, find the hidden vault or whatever. Doors are so present in D&D games that we thought they actually deserved their own section.
Yeah.
And one of the graces that this does is it sort of codifies a lot of facts about doors so that you don't have to repeat them over and over in other places.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of great choices like glass door, metal door, stone door, wooden door.
Yeah, if you ever need to know the armor class and hit points of a stone door, look no further. That information's here.
And also, we've got the hit points, the difficulty to open, luck complexities. We've got secret doors and how hard they are to detect. This is so useful. Portcullises often happens as well.
Yeah.
And then we've got dungeons. We've got a lot on.
I will say, big thing with doors is every time I play a strength-based character and I try to break through a door, I fail the check. Every time. It's either I badly fail the check or I way over succeed. So I either fail the check or I succeed by like 10. It's like a 9 wall or a 26. There's never an in-between for me.
Dungeons, mapping a dungeon, dungeon decay, and dungeon quirks. There's a massive table on this.
Yeah, this is a sort of compilation of a lot of material that was again, scattered throughout the 2014 DMG, but condensed down to basically help you bring an adventure environment to life. Whether it's a dungeon in an adventure you're running and you want to spice it up a little bit, or if you're creating an adventure set in a dungeon, you can roll on the Dungeon Quirks table to give some inspiration about why, when, and by whom it was built, and what kind of shape it's in. And what might be in there.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to DMs just how varied dungeons can be.
You know, a dungeon can be inside of a dead beast. I mean, you've got some examples here. It's like, well, a dungeon could be made by giants, so everything is.
I don't want to get too far away from it. I was hoping they would go into the dungeon decay a little bit earlier. There is something I wanted to point out, and that is that I am loving the artwork for dungeons. So, like this. Looks like it's on grid paper, which is so sick. It looks like it's on like graph paper. It looks hand-drawn in a way. Like the art style that they're using for maps in this specific iteration of 5e is just so cool to me. Because it looks kind of hand-drawn, but it's also pretty detailed for a map of this style. Like you can see where there's steps and there's, well, this is probably like a water, a section of water, or maybe that's rock or something. You can see like different doorways and stuff that are on the map. I love the detail, but continuing to keep it kind of simplified. It's not super flashy like some of the module maps are.
A scale is completely over the top.
Yes.
And maybe more difficult to get around.
And there's a beautiful illustration showing what a giant dungeon ruin looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Again,
as
amazing
the halfling
art.
struggles to climb up the stairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the little guy right there.
Yeah. You know, a dungeon built on top of a cloud, in the sewers, by dwarves, in a volcano, floating on the sea. It's just a lot of hooks to show you that dungeon doesn't just have to be something underneath the city.
And can be fantastical in itself.
Yeah. I love carved into a meteorite before or after. Because that implies a lot of horrible things.
Yeah.
That reminds me of an adventure I ran years and years and years ago where the characters were teleported to a dungeon and they didn't realize it was in a comet that was hurtling toward a planet.
Oh.
And so only later did they realize they're on a timeline.
Yeah.
That if they don't get out of the dungeon, they're going to be destroyed along with
The
the
dungeon
comet.
will destroy you.
Yes.
That is amazing.
That is
that's
so
fantastic.
sick. I love that.
I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of great hooks on this.
Todd and I said the same thing. Twins almost.
And then you've got decay. So if this place has been abandoned, neglected, crumbling, there are dangers that can exist. And you've got very actionable things that can happen because of it. Environmental effects I love. And this is something I constantly would come to the Dungeon Master's Guide for, like when it's extremely hot, when it's raining, how does precipitation make it hard to see the enemy or for them to see you? This all can have a dramatic effect and really flesh out the adventure while you're running it to give it.
Okay. I like what he said there because I have a problem as a DM where I don't use precipitation often enough. There has to be rain and stuff for society to function. Like if it's established your players have to consume water on a daily basis, then that means they have to get that from somewhere. But I don't know the answers to how rain obscures an enemy's vision and stuff like that. And I kind of don't want to be called out on it. So I'm happy that this DMG is going to add some more context for that kind of stuff, which the one we currently have might do, but I haven't read it. Just to reiterate, I have not read the 2014 Player's Handbook.
Literally atmosphere.
Yes.
Yes. And they have these environmental effects have very simple, straightforward rules that you can apply as a DM. And mostly here, we just did consolidation of material that was in the 2014 books, just to make sure it was all in one place.
That includes planar effects that were in the cosmology chapter before, because they can apply not just on the plane they originate from, but also in a place that is affected by the energy of that plane.
Yeah, I mean, because some of these environmental effects make a lot of sense, like extreme heat, frigid water, deep water, extreme cold. But then we have dead magic zone. So the fabric of the weave has been somehow devastated.
Yeah.
High altitude, again, terrifying. But then we've got, like you said, the planar effects. The winds of pandemonium. I love using effects like that. And you can always mix and match those if you want to make an environment special.
Yes.
We also have like a section on fear and mental stress.
That's right, yes. So these are effects that often come up in play where characters are confronted with some horror of the far realm or something that inspires such dread that commoners would run in terror and adventurers might do the same under certain circumstances. We've given the DM tools for mechanically, how do you handle fear in the game? Mechanically, how do you handle mental stress? One of the simplest rules in here that I think a lot of DMs can leverage is we have something in the game called psychic damage. And psychic damage is a great way to mechanically reflect mental stress. If an effect is causing mental stress, it is attacking the mind of the character, and that's represented by psychic damage. But there are other types of effects that are talked about in here as well.
So I love that. I don't think I've ever used psychic damage for mental stress. It's a great idea. I think another option might be using levels of exhaustion. You just have to be careful with that one, because stacking exhaustion can kind of screw somebody up. But I think it could work pretty well too. But I really like the psychic damage option. I think that's going to work out great.
So that you have some versatility.
You also have like a settlement tracker in here. We've got traps in here, a lot of traps, a lot of poison to choose from. Siege weapons, guidance on NPCs, an NPC tracker. This really is kind of like every toy in the box that you need.
Yes, and we've done a few sort of evolutionary things with some of these tried and true dungeon staples.
It's hard
For
to
instance,
take your jacket
the
off
hazards
with
and the
headphones
traps
on.
now, you can actually customize. You can essentially up-level them the way you can up-level spells. So if you want a more dangerous version of that hazard, the rules help you create it.
The nastiest quicksand. Fireball fungus is lovely.
Fireball fungus is a small inanimate mushroom that can grow anywhere. Fungi are found in abundance. Its luminous orange cap sheds light, and it can withstand a certain amount of damage, but when you drop it to 0, it detonates as if a fireball exploded in its space. And if you put a bunch of fireball fungi together, they can all trigger their fireball effects. So for low-level play, I recommend only one at a time. But for high-level characters, you put 3 or 4 of those in one place.
Or you march an army into that field. Like,
yes.
You know the field is there, and you have to very carefully run through it. And then an army starts running through there and just starts blowing up behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they just take that from Baldur's Gate 3? Because that's a thing in Baldur's Gate 3. Did they just take it? Because that's the bigger bong? Is that what it's called? It's just a thing. It's a thing in Baldur's Gate 3. Did they just steal it for... I mean, I guess Baldur's Gate 3 is based off of D&D. But I'm assuming these mushrooms were created by Baldur's Gate. So I'm assuming D&D took them? I don't know.
The other new hazards that we've created are called vicious vines.
Yeah.
Vicious vines they look like ordinary vines that you might see coiling around a statue in a garden or around an archway in a doorway. But they get pretty aggravated when people get too close to them and can lash out.
We've got webs. We've got razor vine, which people should be familiar with who like Planescape. The river Styx, as you mentioned, a rock slide, inferno, poisonous gas, quicksand. It's so fun to have all these little pieces because each one of them can just trigger an adventure in my mind.
I think it's great to arm the DM with things that are just more than monsters.
Yeah.
So that it helps bring the environment to life, as you say, and it gives them something else to contend with.
Yeah.
They can't talk to the brown mold.
Yeah.
They can't negotiate with it. They just have to deal with it in some other way. And just fun stuff to...
You underestimate a bard. They can negotiate with the brown mold. Let's not fool ourselves.
play with. Like, as you're building out a settlement, you as a DM might already have an idea in your head about what that settlement is and what it's like. But if you want to go through the fun activity of just coming up with a random settlement, you can do so now. In fact, let's do so now.
Okay.
So,
Want a dice roller?
oh yeah, we have a die. Thank you. We'll need a die. So the settlement section talks about, I'm a DM, do I need a map of the settlement or can I get by without one? There's some,
Want a dice roller?
oh yeah, we have a die. Thank you. We'll need a die. So
What is this fella down there? This chunky green guy. I like him. He's a friend, bro. A friend. I like the Goliath over here beside the Aarakocra. The little green fella, the kitty cat chasing him. These are tieflings, I think. I really hope my mouse cursor is on.
the settlement section talks about, I'm a DM, do I need a map of the settlement or can I get by without one? There's some advice on how to handle that. There's a tracking sheet here that you can use
Is that a baby flump, bro? Look at him. He looks so
to
scared.
keep track of important features of your settlement. But first you decide how big is the settlement. Is it a village, is it a town, or is it a city? Let's say
These
it's
maps
a town.
again,
What
man.
is the defining trait of the town? Roll a d20.
8.
8. It's got a sprawling cemetery. Hey, Todd.
Yes.
This is like the place you want to go
your
to live.
house.
Yeah.
So then the defining trait of this town is it's got a huge sprawling cemetery. What is the town's claim to fame, James?
9.
9. Spellcasters. It has an abundance of spellcasters.
Totally
Makes
a good
sense.
sign.
Right. I'm betting a lot of necromancers. Yes.
This is their IKEA. This is their
Right.
Walmart.
Yes.
Some assembly required. Some reassembly required.
What current calamity is befalling the town? James,
1.
this is a 12. Okay, 1. Monsters infest the settlement.
Makes
Obviously.
Maybe some of them are, in
Some of them have been
graves.
made. Yeah, these are the
Yes.
undead that wander.
Maybe they're hiding out in the mausoleums. I don't know. And then local leaders, you roll a d12 and you get
4.
4. An illegitimate leader causing civil unrest. So maybe the mayor died and his son or daughter has just seized the reins of power while other elected officials are trying to install other more appropriate people. There's a tavern in this town that everybody likes to frequent. We're going to have to roll 2 d20s for this one.
20 and 17.
All right. The first half of the tavern's name is The Witch and. This is so appropriate. And then the second part is Satyr.
The
Witch and Satyr.
That's the name
Tavern.
of the tavern.
That's the name of the tavern, The Witch and Satyr.
I love naming taverns. The only one I've come up with is the Silver Sisters. I had a tavern that was secretly ran by hags named the Silver Sisters. I don't know if I should disclose that because I might use that again. We'll change the name. But the Silver Sisters was my creation. Normally, I use a random name generator. There's random name generators for taverns out there. And the favorite one I've come up with using a random name generator was the Puzzling Avocado. I love the Puzzling Avocado. It's such a cool name for a tavern. It's such a cool tavern. I made the tavern a little bit confusing for the name to make sense. And I made it a canon in my world that the Puzzling Avocado indeed does not sell avocados. They don't have any avocados at all. It's kind of a point that they won't sell avocados, And I love that for me.
And if you need to know what that building is over there, it's a shop of some kind. You can roll a d20.
19.
And it's a mason. He's probably busy making gravestones.
Yeah, probably.
So there you go. Now all you need is a settlement name. Bada bing, bada boom. You've just made a town.
And you can write all that information down on the handy settlement tracker provided in the chat.
And that's so fun too. You're kind of playing a mini game as a DM when you get to roll on a random table.
Yeah, we often talk about rainy day activities.
Yeah.
That something like a random settlement generator is great for. I can't go outside and play today. I guess that's where rainy day comes from. But our D&D game got canceled this week. But I want to be doing D&D. So I'm gonna pull out my Dungeon Master's Guide and do this.
So tell me about mobs. Well, like a great example is 8 zombies are surrounding and attacking
Yes.
a fighter. Like, do they get bonuses because they're a mob?
Right. There's a way to run an encounter, and that is if you're fighting a large number of creatures and they're all basically the same, you can run them all individually.
Yeah.
Or you can use mobs.
Right. It's basically just a way of abstracting the math to say, okay, if there's 8 skeletons attacking the fighter at once, you can roll for each one, but statistics tells you how many of them are going to hit.
Yeah.
And we condense that information onto a table that you can look at really quick to just figure out, okay, 8 of them attack you, 3 of them hit, you take this much damage, and streamline that. And then the flip side is the wizard casts a fireball, how many zombies are in it?
Yeah.
If you don't have 80 zombie miniatures on your battle map and draw the circle and carefully count how many each one, you can use the table in there to give you an estimate of how many.
Because you're getting that cumulative effect of damage. And this is extremely helpful. I love running mobs in D&D. So yeah, if you're
I'm glad
being
to hear that.
attacked by 10 zombies and you cast a fireball, you have this pool of damage that you are offing.
Yeah, in a theater of the mind experience, play experience, it's a very fair way to adjudicate the number of targets and the number of hits.
Yeah. We've got a great section on marks of prestige, whether...
I've never ran mobs, and I need to learn how to, because the current campaign that I'm running, I don't win anything. D&D is not a competitive game, is going to end with a giant battle involving an army of people. Now, the players are not going to be responsible for defeating an entire army. They're going to have NPC helpers. There's going to be soldiers on their side kind of thing. But it would be nice to learn how to run mobs against other mobs. My current plan right now is to roll combat away from the table, so before the session, to see how the armies are doing against each other and to see how many rounds it would take for notable NPCs to be killed in combat. So let's say the players don't finish combat in 6 rounds. And let's say the king of one of the nations that's fighting in the army dies round 5. If they don't finish the combat by round 5, that king is dead, you know? So I that's how I plan on running it. It would be so much faster for me to wall around or wall before I go to the table if I was using mobs, probably. So I need to look into that.
Or you've given someone a fortification, medals.
Yeah, marks of prestige is a sort of a funny name for alternate rewards.
Yeah.
And not every reward has to be in gold pieces or a magic item. Sometimes the best rewards are the strange ones. You just got a deed to a rundown keep. Or
I need that.
You just got a medal, which you can wear proudly, or a title that you can bear and walk around with and call yourself by. Or you.
My first ever D&D campaign, I tried so hard to get a title. My PC at the time really wanted a title on his name, and nobody would give him a title. So he kept trying to make up his own titles. Like one was like Jeffrey the Feared and all of this other crap. And nobody would give him a title. So I would love to get a title on a player one day just to make Jeffrey happy, just to quell that inner Jeffrey, you know?
You got a letter of recommendation, which in a story-based game like D&D can be hugely advantageous.
Yeah.
You couldn't get to see the king before, but now you can, because you did this other quest and you got this very special reward. And the Marks of Prestige section just reminds DMs that these things exist and they're great hooks for getting players involved in other parts of your story and campaign.
Yeah. And we've got a great NPC section, NPC tracker, tables for names that you might want to make up. There's fantastic art of a fire giant being talked to by a mind flayer as an example.
Funny thing about that piece of art, we've done versions of that. The sinister NPC whispering in the ruler's ear a couple of times through the years, usually with humans. So this time I decided to do one that is mind flayer whispering in the ear of the fire giant king. So it's that much more fantastical and threatening.
Yes.
Terrifying.
And it also helps us convey that NPC is a broad category that doesn't include just humanoids. It can include like monsters or creatures or scaled up people. In the case of a fire giant, it's very broad. To be an NPC, basically, you're just a creature that can be reasoned with and talked to.
And there's guidance here for detailing them for their personality. And then again, you've got a table on that, like whether they have a pronounced scar, distinctive jewelry, unusual hair color, something to like make them more present in the imagination.
Love that.
Yes.
Now, it was a missed opportunity not to have a mind flayer sitting on a throne and having a hill giant whisper in his ear. The implications alone.
Hill giant with a
This is
headband
not-
of intellect.
This is not the big bad villain.
Maybe the hill giant saying, "You want pepperonis on your brain." Sorry, pepperonis on the brain is very much in my head right now. And
Hungry?
Yes, a little bit. So another great thing that we added to the NPC creation bit is for DMs who have a hard time coming up with names on the fly.
Yeah.
Some tables that you can use to create a name.
But you also have NPCs.
Thank the heavens above. I am so bad with coming up with names on the fly. I have a campaign where 2 of the NPCs that people meet at the same time are named John. John. They're both John. I played a character where I had to come up with NPCs for my backstory, and I named 2 of them John. There have been so many Johns in my D&D history. I have a tiny notebook somewhere inside of my house with a lot of names written in it. But I wrote the names in there to use them in future books. That way I'm not recycling names. I used to write a lot of books when I was younger. I have fallen out of practice with it, but I really need to take that little booklet and use that for D&D instead. But I need to find it. It's not in my D&D bag where it should be. And I think this would be really good for the NPCs that have to deal with players like me. There are players that every time you meet an NPC, you go to ask their name. And that doesn't happen with all of my characters. It happens with the curious ones. I have played a couple of characters that are just very curious by nature, and they just want to know everybody's name. I played one character that was just an overall nice guy. He was raised well, and he was taught the respectful thing is to ask somebody's name when you meet them. However, a DM does not have a name for every NPC, especially not every NPC that you're going to be talking to for 30 seconds. I would meet a random person on the street, ask them how to get to like the tavern or something, and ask what their name is. And then the DM just has to pull a name out of nowhere. So that's amazing. I love that. I'm sure the other DMG had that, but as I've stated a few times now, I didn't read it.
NPC secrets. You've got rules for NPCs as party members, the comic relief, the curmudgeon, like these very standard reasons to have an NPC there.
Yes, and those categories were very carefully chosen so that you're introducing, our advice to the DM is introduce NPCs who are adding something to the party without being too much work for you.
Yeah.
And so sometimes a party, particularly if they're underpowered in some way, can benefit from an NPC who just fills in something that they don't have. It could be as simple as the milk toast healer.
Yeah.
This is just a guy or a gal or a thing that delivers healing when you need it and doesn't have much more to contribute to the party than that. As opposed to the dutiful assistant.
Right.
Or the walking textbook.
Yeah.
I need a character that has an assistant. I would love it if a player of mine, or if a DM allowed me to do this, if I had a wealthy member of the party and they just come with an assistant, maybe they come with like a squire, who that NPC can't do anything that the player doesn't ask them to do. You know? Like, I'm not going to, as the DM, help solve puzzles and stuff like that. And I think the best way to do it, like for the squire, for instance, let's say your player starts at level 5. Maybe the squire is like level 2 or 3, you know? Maybe you just down level them a couple of levels, and that's the best way they can help the party. The problem with down leveling them, and this is my issue with DMPCs in the first place, is it's easier for them to die if they're not the same level as everybody else, because you're balancing the encounters for the players. So if you have like a squire fighting alongside you, then that's going to be a problem. If you have a normal assistant, then maybe they avoid combat at all cost. Maybe as the DM, you work a little bit of DM magic and you give them an insanely high stealth bonus. And every turn that combat breaks out, they just roll to hide. and then they are just out of combat for the rest of the time. Maybe you give them an insane amount of potions of invisibility. Every time combat breaks out, they pop a potion, chug it. Maybe it's like an alchemist, like the assistant can do alchemy, and they just make their own potions of invisibility. There's a few things to do there. I think the problem is balancing it to where they are helpful to the party, but the DMPC doesn't die too early. I think it's okay for them to die, just not too quickly, or that's going to get rid of the purpose of them being there, you know? But I do love that idea. I have played a few PCs that stay with the party. I don't know if I would call them DMPCs. So I've played a few NPCs that are like travel guides. Like my party went to the Feywild and they were escorted by a hang-on so they didn't get lost in the Feywild kind of thing. Or to a different point, they were escorted through the Shadowfell by a paladin. So I like doing that kind of stuff to where there's somebody there to help them along the way to where the players don't get lost too easily.
These are archetypes of NPCs that a lot of party members would want to have in their group, but aren't going to steal the spotlight away from their characters.
That's the key.
You get into loyalty, the meaning of loyalty.
Yeah, loyalty is a...
Mutiny. You get into mutiny.
Yes, loyalty is a sort of an optional rule that a DM can dive into for special situations where the characters are have NPCs around, and those NPCs' demeanors can change. So if the characters, say, buy a ship and decide to set sail across the high seas, and they hire an NPC crew to do a lot of the drudge work, a DM might want to keep track of that crew's loyalty.
Yeah. And on top of this, we have tons of traps to choose from: falling nets, hidden pits, poison darts, fire casting statues, poison needles, rolling stones, which you have to have, spiked pit.
Just a rolling
You've got
stone.
all of these traps that someone would possibly want in a dungeon to like toy around with, adjust, and then you've got like supernatural gifts as well. So you mentioned other different rewards.
I do love a good trap, but I'm not good at making those either. I did like a swinging pendulum to reference an Edgar Allan Poe story in a recent one-shot, and I think I could have done it so much better looking back at it.
Rewards, there are blessings that can happen to these players.
Ooh, unicorn.
And supernatural gifts were in the 2014 DMG as well. We've picked them up and put them in this section because they are special, and like Marks of Prestige, they're a different kind of reward.
They're great tools for adventure design as you're thinking about how am I going to reward the players for doing this thing.
Yeah.
And they're easier to create than magic items. So if a DM wants to create a new supernatural gift to give to players, there are several models to follow here, but it doesn't have some of the overhead that magic items do.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And then, of course, we have a variety of siege weapons: trebuchets, rams, siege towers, keg launchers, flame-throwing
Suspended cauldron.
coaches, a flame-throwing coach.
Yeah,
Flamethrowing coach reminds me of that thing from Elden Ring with the giant green head that shoots fire out of its mouth. I hate those things.
yes. We had several siege items in the 2014 ones, and we wanted to just flesh out those because they were pretty mundane. It's like we had a ballista, we had the mangonel, but we wanted to give some weird fantasy ones as well, like the keg thrower and basically the medieval tank, the flame-throwing coach.
I love
Well, I
these
love
new
a
additions.
keg
This really
thrower.
does
That's
feel like the
sick.
toy box. And also very organized.
Yes.
An organized toy box.
If all else fails, alphabetization.
Thank you so much for watching. Every week leading up to the brand new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, we'll have new videos and premieres telling you more about the book. To pre-order the 2024 core
We're not going to go through the pre-order. I wanted to go through that little bit because I think Todd is doing a great job presenting this kind of stuff. So I think he's doing incredible. I've been very impressed with these newer videos coming out. I hate how my face looks with this video, but that's fine. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really love the new Toolbox for the DMG. I think it sounds great so far. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I cannot wait to get my hands on this book. Like they were saying, you can pre-order the DMG and the Monster Manual. I don't think the Monster Manual comes out until the beginning of next year. I could be wrong about that. The DMG, I think, comes out within the next month. Player's Handbook is already available. Like I said, I own one back there. I definitely did not get an advanced copy. I don't have enough subscribers for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like once again. Subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell. I love doing these kinds of videos. I hope to get back to the spooky videos soon. Hopefully my PC gets fixed because this one is not as powerful. So I want to run it on a better PC, better graphics kind of thing. So I hope everybody is having a great day. And until next time, peace.